When people talk about martial law, they are fear mongering, I would say, and unintentionally. So I'm not criticizing them. However, how we actually should be looking at martial law is in blaming the people who are the reason why martial law is being produced, but the actual government that is invoking that martial law. Because as I've told you before, whether you go to the streets or whether you don't, whether in a tyranny, whether in fascism, martial law will be invoked because they will find whatever reason to invoke martial law. And the people who fearmonger it don't understand the historical context of how this is used as a weapon of silencing the people and forcing people to obey in advance and to obey in general without resisting. Because if you're scared of the actions of the government, then you're obviously not going to do anything. You're not going to resist, and then by the end, you have a 70-year dictatorship like Mexico. Obviously, we shouldn't be reckless. However, these people position that it can be prevented. And under tyranny, under fascism, it cannot. It's just a matter of time until it happens because whether there's a good reason or not, there's always an event. I've been shared some insights as to this week, and no, it's not any top secret, any like national security thing, just some theories that people have had, and I kind of wanted to touch upon one, particularly because I see it as very plausible, not necessarily has to be this week or anything, but in general, and I feel like we need to be prepared for such a reality. That reality is a sabotage event where the government, where that administration manipulates and artificially creates a panic scenario in which they're capable of channeling their maximum power. I'm gonna butcher it, but Glauitz incident. This was a false flag attack on the radio station Slender Glauitz in Glauitz, staged by NC Germany on the night of the 31st of August 1939. The attack basically manufactured by Germany as a casus belli to justify the invasion of Poland. So this attack had an angle. That angle was to gain something to get more power, right? The same thing happened here. This is the unaliving of the president of Rwanda in 1994. This is rumored to have been done by the Hutu Rwandans themselves in order to trigger out what would be known as the Rwandan genocide, where they basically used this as an excuse to unalive over 800,000 Tutsi Rwandans in 100 days. That's 100. So what I want you to marinate in is that if there is an event of such a significant reality, that blame will definitely be towards certain people, right? Certain groups. We've noticed that DEI, transgender people, Democrats, it will be at the fault of some of these people. And in order to do that, and because of that, it's going to justify certain actions from the government, particularly martial law. Now, I'm not going to guide as to what a response in that reality would be. However, I need us to understand that there are only two options that can be done in such a reality. The first one is to submit, that is to bend the knee and obey in advance so that you're not harmed, so that you don't get in trouble. However, the cost to that is who knows how long in this reality of a fascist America. And a lot of people will have respect and trust in the checks and balances, which is funny because they haven't worked thus far. So, I mean, I don't know why people would still have it. However, that's not going to work for us because it's compromised by the time all of this cultivates, because it's happening really fast. Democrats won't have any power. And convincing the right isn't going to work because he's going to have so much power that he has power to leverage over them against the people. And then you're going to say, we can just vote out the Republicans. Well, I mean, the rich people can as well, and they have much more money to do it. If anything, they have fancy stuff that can change it. So in this reality, you sit and just wait and wait and wait. And we need to consider that in Chile, we had the Chicago Boys, a group of like incels who were sent over to the University of Chicago, learned the economy, went back, were tasked with just destabilizing the Chile economy so that the people rose up against Allende, a democratically elected president, and then favored the dictator, Pinochet. He went on to rule between 1973 and 1990. You're going to say, well, he's not going to live that long, but the reality is that it's not the person, it's the ideology that is the ones pulling the strings at the top, right? The one above JD. So now we have a new liberal conservative parties, just like the PRI in Mexico, who had dominated Mexico for over 70 years in the 1900s into the early 2000s. They had democratically elected individuals, just it so happened to be the same party ruled across all the branches. Now, it's not democratically elected. It wasn't fair at all, but that's what the other countries saw, that it was democratically elected. So in submitting, we submit to such a reality where we don't have control and we give up our constitutional protections. We give up that social contract. Now, he's our social contract. The other alternative is resistance. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to look how you're thinking right now. It can look in different ways. But the start to this resistance is refusing the narrative that comes with such an event, which is, oh, it's to blame to DEI, it's actually the Democrats, it's actually the liberals, it was this person who did it. No, we know who did it, and we know they're above. That's hypothetically in comparison to this storytelling that I'm saying about this theory. You know, a theory isn't real, so just saying. But in that reality, martial law should not make you fear anything, because ultimately it's gonna happen whatever it is that you do. You know, you dress outside of the norms, you get caught. You know, you feel a different way than how you were born, you get caught. 1979 is when there was a conservative ideological shift in Iran. Women went from dressing like liberally to getting unalived for dressing outside the norm. And that's the future that women want in this country. I don't think a lot of Americans understand the consequences, because plenty of them are saying, hey, 4 more years, hey, 2 years. It's not like, I understand that Americans are generally not students of history, that we don't actually take the context of international conflict into account, but I've studied all of that, and it's all been symptoms, and I've said it even before the election, and people were like, that's just theory. Well, is it theory now? It's not, is it? And these are the dangers of giving legitimacy to such a head of state. And this is the thing. In conflict, the worst thing you can give such a belligerent actor is legitimacy, because then their minions have legitimacy and then they start acting out. So now your problem as a citizen is no longer just political violence from the policies, but it's social violence from his minions. And then with that comes militias of sorts, proxies, like, you know, the made up title of Cybertruck Body, and then his little digital secret state, which is the Doji Puberty Boys. So I just want you to know that upon such an event, it's okay for you not to know what you're going to do right away, because I think it's going to be a shock for all of us, because even as a conflict scholar, never thought I would have to practice my, expertise here in the United States. It's wild. My parents left Mexico during that dictatorship that I told you about, just to come here and face the same kind of dictatorship when Mexico's over there getting constitutional reform. That's wild. So I need you to understand that whatever occurs is going to be state, as in country, manufactured, and it's going to be intended in order to demonize particular groups and justify a maximization of military power against the people. This will provide him with much more higher power in actually advancing his agenda without much of a fuss. And that is when we have to make our choice. Now, what those choices are, I don't know. I think we all know. I think we just don't want to say it out loud. But upon the exhaustion of every other single traditional, lawful channels, Congress can't do anything. The executive isn't going to do anything. The judiciary isn't going to do anything. 3 letters? I mean, FBI is fighting, but by the time all of this settles down, what is there going to be left? There's not. So I just want you to be prepared for a shock, but then understand that what you are seeing isn't the truth. That what you are seeing is a performance, like in North Korea. And you shouldn't believe it. Whether you want to resist in certain ways versus others, only we can save ourselves and only we can save this country.